This month, let's take on the question, why am I here? We know the physiological reason, of course, but we suspect there's another, more important reason, too. As someone has written, if the universe is an accident, we're accidents. But if there is meaning in the universe, there's meaning in us also. Perhaps Dr. Albert Einstein helped us understand more about the laws governing the universe than any man who ever lived, and he believed there was some sort of meaning in the way things are. He was sure of it. He said, the more I study physics, the more I'm drawn toward metaphysics. If you haven't done so, you would enjoy reading Einstein, His Life and Times by Ronald W. Clark. Albert Einstein was so remarkable a man, it was as though he'd arrived at this planet through some mistake in celestial navigation, and as a result devoted his life to solving the problems of time and space so that the mistake would not be repeated. Although he belonged to no formal religion or sect, he was a deeply religious man in the cosmic sense. He believed that such magnificence and colossal order, the great cyclotron of the universe, as Ronald Clark puts it, could not have been an accident. But Einstein was much more than a giant in physics. He was a courageous and gentle humanitarian as well, and he addressed himself to the purpose of life. And he answered the question, why am I here, as well as it has been answered, I believe, when he said, man is here for the sake of other men only. Now that's about it. I'll buy that. Man is here to serve man only. It's the only reason in my mind that makes sense. There may be millions who don't agree and millions more who are unacquainted with that statement, but the truth of it will be reflected in their lives regardless. The truth of that great statement is reflected in your life and mine also. Even the fun we seek is dependent upon it. If we do not serve others, life becomes meaningless to us. And this is behind much of the unrest we find in today's youth, I believe. There's something in each of us that tells us, once we've put away the things of childhood, that we're here to serve others. And if we remain in positions in which we are not assuming the service that normally should go with adulthood, we become restive, anxious, and depressed. It's behind much of the unease common to men on a Sunday afternoon or evening. It's why we get tired after a while of playing golf every day or fishing or sailing or whatever leisure activity we engage in. We might say that our leisure has meaning and renewal to the extent that we know we've earned it, and we earn it by serving others, especially in our culture. We have only to look at those who do not serve to see the truth of our postulate. There's the dissatisfaction of our older student population, the people on Skid Row seeking escape in alcohol, in prison seeking escape in any way they can find it, in the unemployed, and even in the tragic idle rich and members of the jet set whose lives, if they have not found some meaningful form of expression or a cause or role in which they can lose themselves, are pitiful caricatures of real existence. Those who have not found themselves quite often try to lose themselves. Now, in an earlier direct line, we mentioned Dr. Maslow's comment that people are judged in our society in the same way fruit trees are judged, by their fruit, by their production, its quality and quantity, which is another way of saying by how well they serve. A young person often asks, why am I here? The answer is, you are here to serve. Your part of the bargain is to so marshal your unique resources as to do the best possible job of serving others, and you will always serve best doing that which you most enjoy, that which best fits your unique talents and abilities. The next question usually goes, well, that's all fine, but what do I get out of it? And the answer to that, of course, goes your rewards all the years of your life will match the extent and quality of your service. Now, if you happen to want a $3,000 a week income or enjoy flying your own jet and driving expensive cars, you've got to serve in an uncommon way. Now, how you do it is for you to solve, and this is the challenge that can make life so interesting, so exasperating, and baffling. We have to make up our minds as to what's important to us. Now, Dr. Einstein wanted nothing more than the simple necessities of life: a roof, a bed, food, a place to work, his violin, and his sailboat. The modern trappings of success meant nothing to him. He was simply above them. He was often mistaken for an unsuccessful traveling salesman. But his service to mankind was monumental, and his reward, immortality. He could have had anything of a material nature he wanted. He wanted nothing. He was a completely mature human being. But he had not selected his own great gifts. His abilities, like ours, had come as his unique genetic heritage. He simply put them to the best use he could, while at the same time developing a mature and rich overview of mankind. I think we should do the same, and that our kids should know, when they're old enough to know, that they should do the same, make the best use of their gifts, and by so doing, maximize their service, and by so doing, maximize their rewards. It all fits. It makes sense whether you're interested in giving, getting, or both. Few of us have matured or become so wrapped up in one subject to the degree reached by Dr. Einstein. Most of us are much concerned with this world and how we can enjoy it as we go along. We tend to like beautiful things and the perquisites of success. Perhaps we're still children to that extent, but it's fun being a child and harmless. We seem to like such things as beautiful homes, cars, furs, jewels, yachts, and travel, at least until after we've had them for a while. But forgetting for the moment what we may want, the important thing is to find how we can best serve. It answers the question, why am I here? I am here to serve others. Now I know why I get up in the morning and what I should spend a good proportion of my day doing. Maximizing, if I can, my service to those I have chosen to serve. How can I do a better job of serving today than I did yesterday, this year than last? As long as I can keep answering that question, I will continue to grow and mature as a person, and I'll never grow old in mind and spirit. It clarifies our lives. As Voltaire's Candide said, let us cultivate our garden. Let's make it a good garden. The best garden we can produce with the equipment and conditions we've been given within the enormous parameters offered by the world of today and tomorrow. But how do we relate the idea of service to others with our personal goals? In his excellent book, A God Within, the distinguished microbiologist and author René Dubos tells us that the pre-classical and classical Greeks symbolized the hidden aspects of man's nature, in particular the forces that motivate him to perform memorable deeds, by the word entheos, a God within. From the Greek word entheos is derived the word enthusiasm, one of the most beautiful words in any language. And he adds, man today may no longer believe in the divine origin of inspiration, but there are few who do not retain the ancient and almost mystical faith that enthusiasm is the source of creativity. Whatever their religious or philosophical allegiance, all men and women know that there would be little chance of improving the world if it were not for the faith derived from the God within. In the original Greek sense, the word enthusiasm means far more than deep interest, ardent zeal, or twinkling eyes. It implies the divine madness, the mania that Socrates regarded as the mainspring of all worthwhile creations. As Plato worded it, in Phaedrus, in reality, the greatest of blessings come to us through madness, when it is sent as a gift to the gods. Madness, which comes from God, is superior to sanity, which is of human origin. I think that's what each of us is looking for, the kind of work that so fits the kind of person we are that we can lose ourselves in it and find endless enthusiasm, a kind of divine madness. When we do, our daily efforts become one with our goals or with our role. We then serve automatically. Service becomes a natural concomitant, a byproduct of our daily thinking, creativity, and actions. There's little doubt that creativity is a natural extension of enthusiasm. And I'm convinced that there is a kind of work for each of us which will bring the God within us to the surface. Enthusiasm is a kind of madness or mania, and is, as Socrates thought, the mainspring of all worthwhile creations. Our personal goals then become almost incidental and automatically come to us, and we're given what we need, whatever it is that we need, in order to continue our work. That might involve a great corporation employing thousands of people. It might involve a particular job or position, an entirely new entity of some kind, such as an organization or corporation or small business enterprise. It might involve an avocation, a spare time activity, a retirement interest. But lurking within every single one of us, such a source of enthusiasm exists, our own entheos, our own God within. It's interesting that when we find our own God within, it will quite often be a source not only of deep personal satisfaction, enthusiasm, and creativity, but of sufficient financial reward as well. In our world of today, money is usually the way we keep score. The best players, those who have found their greatest source of talent, application, enthusiasm, and creativity, usually wind up with a satisfactory share of the world's marbles. In Charles Frankel's excellent book, The Pleasures of Philosophy, we learn that when Plato speaks of good or virtuous men, as he repeatedly does in the Symposium and other dialogues, it's useful to bear in mind what the Greeks meant by such terms. They didn't hold a Sunday school view of morality. Frederick Woolbridge, who was a colleague of John Dewey's at Columbia for many years, used to remark that the history of morals was told in the history of the word virtue. It began with the Greeks by meaning strength in a man, and it had come among the Victorians to mean weakness in a woman. The model of the good or virtuous man whom the Greeks had in mind was a gentleman, gregarious by nature and active in public life. He loved words and argument. He was sensitive to beauty and should, the Greeks thought, be physically attractive himself. There was a touch of magnificence in his bearing and a love of color. He was magnanimous with others, liberal, though not ostentatious with money, and indifferent to hardship if it was forced upon him. But he was not meek or humble. He sought to be fair and just in his dealings and prudent and temperate in his conduct, but he admired talent, strength, and accomplishment, and he saw no virtue in poverty and no higher wisdom in simpleness of mind. Most conspicuously missing from this calendar of virtues is one quality which we rank high today: pity for weakness. It sounds like a description of the hero in one of Ayn Rand's books, but it's a good description, I think, of the person with an excellent self-image, a person who knows what he wants and how to set about getting it. And I think it's an apt description, too, of the people who do things in the world. You will greatly enjoy reading The Pleasures of Philosophy by Professor Charles Frankel, the former Assistant Secretary of State for Educational and Cultural Affairs, a fine author to add to your personal collection. We are all looking for what is good and beautiful, as Socrates suggested we do, and we'll be on the road to it when we find that which is good and beautiful within ourselves. There's something within each of us telling or trying to tell us the way to find it, and it will, I believe, invariably lead to service. It can be done through a good product, whatever shape it might take. It might be a book, such as those we've discussed here, or a novel, or a product for use by people, or a service of some kind. And it's here that we should keep what is important and what isn't ever before us. It's an easy thing to lose sight of. If we're managers in business, we tend to become obsessed, and for several very good reasons, with that bottom line of the financial statement. Now, profit must be the answer, the logical answer to the right kind of product or service. If what we do has no market value, it's unlikely that it's really good or necessary or desired on the part of people. And we need profit if we're to grow, to invest back into our business and pay those who have invested in it.